Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening. My name is Raymond Pennie, and I'm co-founder of Kylo Partners. And I'm really delighted to be part of the international sessions at the World Staffing Summit. Hence my good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. And in today's session, we're going to ask the question, is your paperwork slowing you down? And following that, we're then going to have a masterclass on what can be done to streamline and automate it, specifically in Bullhorn. And we're going to do that along with three of our clients, customers, partners, friends. And we're going to try and illustrate through real life examples. For those that are not aware of who Kylo Partners are a Bullhorn marketplace partner. We're also a systems integration partner, and we work exclusively on Bullhorn owned products. We're headquartered in Scotland, and for those that have never heard this before, Kylo is the Scottish word for Island cow. So you'll all remember that now. We've got 70 staff across EMEA, Asia Pac, and in America. And I'm really happy to say that joining me today and my partner in crime for the session is Mr. Martin Wishart, who's our Global Product Sales Manager, and he's based in Scotland. We then got Matt Sykes. Matt Sykes is from Yoke, and he's their Head of Learning Development. And I think, Matt, you're based in Wales.
Yeah, that's right, Cardiff.
Yeah. Then we have Bridget Millard from CrossMed, where she's Director of Operations and is based in Omaha. And last but not least, we've got Kate Sharp from Austin Fraser, and she's the Commercial and Legal Manager at Austin Fraser, and she's based in England in a place called Reading. So we have a number of people in a number of different locations. And today, we're going to concentrate on our Awesome Docs platform. So, Martin, would you be able to tell us a little bit about it?
I sure can. And I think since Matt got to specifically say Cardiff, I'll make sure everyone knows I'm specifically in Orkney, sitting in Kylo HQ, as you can see, strategically placed near the fire exit in the office.
Very important.
Yeah. So, as Raymond touched on, we're going to try and provide a masterclass here on document automation within Bullhorn, and the product we have to help with that is Awesome Docs, and this is your complete end-to-end document management solution for the Bullhorn platform, really giving you the ability to take the process from, as we have on screen here, formatting CVs or resumes, to merging documents and creating packets of documents. We've also got an e-signature solution built into the product using the DocuSign integration. And the product itself kind of works using a template where we've got a template behind the scenes that you select from within the Bullhorn environment and initiate the process to create the document, all without leaving Bullhorn. So it's ingrained right into the system. You action it from whichever entity you require, so it can really plug into that point in your process. So whether that be from the job record, the placement, the candidate, or the company perhaps directly, you can use Awesome Docs from anywhere. And we've got kind of 3 clients on, as Raymond mentioned, and 3 friends, and each of those use Awesome Docs in a slightly different way. So without further ado, and without me rambling on too much, we'll pass it on to Raymond, and I think we're going to speak to Matt first of all.
I am. Excellent. So, Matt, would you just be able to tell us a little bit about Yoke and maybe the problem you had, or and how you've overcome it?
Yes, certainly. So I think we're a recruitment agency that have, I guess, different sectors. So we work across a number of areas. We cover temp, we cover contract, we cover perm. So we have quite a lot of variety in the business. And I think for us, when we moved to Bullhorn, we were trying to use Bullhorn's own kind of CV formatting solution, which I think by Bullhorn's own admission isn't great. Or the alternative was people doing it themselves, which was taking up quite a lot of time. So that's when I think we've been talking to you guys because you'd done our Bullhorn implementation, which for the record went really well as well. But we tried the CV formatter product, and do you know what? The best thing I can say about the product is I kind of get a lot of the system problems or support raised to me. I hear very little about CV formatter. We've set it up. We've got a number of templates for different people, different brands running, and it just does exactly what it's supposed to. You know, it creates a formatted CVs. It does it well. It gives the users what they want. It's really easy to use, and it causes us very little problems. So I think for us, it's definitely been a time saving, but also it's just really reliable and dependable as well.
And because your business is in a number of different sectors, is the CV that you present to your customers or the resume that you present to your customers the same, or does it change depending on in which vertical you're working in?
For most verticals, it's fairly similar. We do have kind of differences between contract and perm, and we actually have within the group. So Yoke are part of a slightly larger group. We have other brands within that use the products as well. So we have templates that are completely branded, and actually within that, if anyone has similar, we have our own private labels set up. So again, there's no chance of users selecting the wrong template. You know, users only see the templates that are designed for them. So that's another really nice feature as well.
Yeah, and I would say that as a takeaway for maybe as part of the masterclass is don't be scared to use your departments or use your department structure within Bullhorn. Because if you have got different people who work in different departments who need things to look either slightly differently, then if you use your departments, then each of the templates can then be associated to a department, and therefore that user will only see the ones that are suitably appropriate to them. And that's it just makes it easy. One of the challenges is we really don't want the generation of paperwork to be slowing people down. And equally, we don't want it to be something that's difficult. And maybe to Matt's point just now, that if people just have it as part of their flow, they know where to go, they do it, and they get on, because the important part for them is being able to get the candidate well presented to their client as quickly as they possibly can. What sort of thing were you doing before, Matt?
So I think before, I said when we came onto Bullhorn, we tried to use their own proprietary product, which does have a number of limitations. But what we found is consultants were just doing it themselves. And that was causing other problems, that they were then saving it in personal files. They weren't uploading docs to Bullhorn. You know, conversely, because of that, they weren't following Bullhorn workflows. And we just found it was having knock-on effects. It wasn't just about the time. It was almost a compliance thing. It was a data thing, that we were starting to lose data from our system. Again, because consultants didn't want to use it. And for anyone that's worked in recruitment, you'll know when recruiters find things hard and the admin's bogging them down, they just don't do it. They find other ways, or they find shortcuts, or they just don't do it full stop. And again, for us, it's just increased that compliance. Now, everyone just does it through Bullhorn because there are no problems with doing so.
And do you have certain fields or certain processes that need to be followed that make the formatted CV look well if everything's filled in properly?
Yeah, so we pull various data. I think for our CV format templates, we went quite simple. So we pull through, dates and consultant information, salaries, job titles, things like that. And we use that to kind of populate a fairly simple template. I know one of our brands actually goes further. They have a box for interview notes on Bullhorn. We set it up in HTML, so they can format in HTML. And then again, it pulls through onto the template, so it can just put their interview notes directly onto the templates as well, which I think they thought was a nice touch. So yeah, I think we've certainly made use of that function across the whole of the Awesome Docs product, that we could just have that auto-populate to stop the consultants having to do it themselves every time.
I think that's a great thing. That another probably a masterclass point would be, feel free to personalize the CV that you're sending forward, and if you can make it more personalized, whether it's with interview notes or that it's especially coming from a particular consultant, then that's a good thing. we've got some clients down in Singapore where it's important that they also put who they are and their license number on every CV that they send. So it's a neat trick for everyone to have their own personalized CV. Now, Matt, you've maybe moved on a little from just using it for CV formatting. I know that you use it for terms. Would you be able to maybe speak a little as to what you've done with Awesome Docs and sending of client terms?
Yeah, so I think the client terms was a big one for us. Again, I mean, before we started using Awesome, it was always a manual process. Consultants were editing their own terms. We ended up going down the route of not actually having clients sign terms because the idea of them printing it off in a signature.
Those were the days. Those were the days.
Exactly. We never really got away from that, everyone. I mean, we always thought, well, do we do it on DocuSign? But it just seemed like an extra step to have to manually go and create the doc and then upload it into DocuSign. Comes back to this of, if you're making life hard for consultants, they don't do things. So, but then we're allowing consultants to edit their own terms. And often we did have a few business problems. And I can say directly, we lost money because people had sent terms out that weren't compliant, they'd made errors, and it caught us out. So actually, when we moved to start using Awesome Docs for terms, it gave us the ability to find that perfect balance between. We actually use fields on Bullhorn to replace whole clauses in our contract. So even simple things like, are we billing a client based on a full package? Are we billing them based on just base salary? We can have a consultant choose a field in Bullhorn, and it will replace that clause with something that's been pre-written, and we know is legally compliant. We can allow consultants to make changes themselves, so they're not waiting for a back office, an admin, a compliance team to review every set of terms, which we've tried in the past and has become a bottleneck. So it allows the process to be much faster. Consultants do it themselves, but also limit what consultants can do themselves. So where something might be a little bit more tricky or a little bit more bespoke, we can still feed that back into back office so consultants can't make too many changes to the document. I guess because of that, everything's now through DocuSign as well, because it just integrates with Bullhorn. So it's made the process really smooth, really slick. It looks much better to our customers as well. I think much more professional. And I think as an added benefit at the back end, we're also able to update fields, not just have the documents back to the system automatically, but update fields based on those documents coming back as well. So it's a really simple one. We have a field for the date we last agreed terms with the client. Again, it's automatically populated. So we can easily search our system to look at clients where we've agreed terms in the last quarter, to actually start reviewing who are the clients where we've re-agreed terms or we've agreed new terms. So senior management within the business can keep an eye on that automatically. So there's been lots, I think, of knock-on effects for us. I think that's just made that really well. And I think just to add for you, I think as well, I mean, some of the templates that have been set up, I think, kudos to your product team. There's some really nice stuff that they're doing in HTML that, they've actually designed templates that are kind of really complicated behind the scenes, but just so simple to use for the user.
No, there we go. That sounds like you've mastered some areas in this masterclass, but your use case is quite simple compared to some others. Martin, can you take it from here?
I can. I just wanted to touch on a few things that Matt mentioned as well. I think the use of the Awesome Docs for CVs is really cool, but I expect that that's also helping ensure that your CVs are actually stored in Bullhorn as well, and people aren't storing them on desktops or local drives, which I think is important in today's age for a compliance point of view, if we say that. And then also the complexity of the templates you're using maybe are slightly simpler than Bridget perhaps, and we're moving on to, but the functionality and being able to just draw data from Bullhorn is part and parcel in the product, but the functionality to apply the conditional stuff is great to see you're taking the benefit of that as well. I think it can really help with the ensuring that the data is in Bullhorn.
Definitely.
So as Raymond mentioned, some things are a little easier than others. We're going to talk to Bridget and learn a little bit about her process and how she's using Awesome Docs today within the business. And before I go any further, Bridget, you want to give a little bit of a introduction to CrossMed and how you run your business, and I guess how long you've been around, because I know you're relatively new.
We are. Yeah, so CrossMed, we're a healthcare staffing firm out of Omaha, Nebraska, in the U.S. We have been in business almost 3 years. We started just me as a little team of 1, and now we've grown to a team of almost 50. So we've got a couple people starting today, actually. It's been really great. The healthcare staffing world is very, very active here in the U.S. And we definitely needed to streamline our process with our business as large as we've gotten, with multiple clients and many, many travel nurses, and it's been great.
Brilliant. So Bridget and the team use Awesome Docs in a very different way to the other members we have on speaking, specifically for creating packets or submission packets to work with your healthcare facilities and vendors, and I think quite often you're submitting these to VMS portals as well. So what I'd like to understand or get you to share with us is what your process was like before using Awesome Docs.
Sure. So when submitting a nurse to a hospital for a job, it requires a cover sheet that's hospital specific with a lot of their personal information, their resume, their skills checklist, their any certifications. So it's typically between a 40 and 50 page document. We would house these items in Bullhorn, but oftentimes, similar to what Matt had stated, if the process wasn't easy, the recruiters would find a better way, and it wasn't efficient, and a lot of documents would be missing from Bullhorn. So if someone had to step in, we would say, oh gosh, we don't have half of their packet because it's on someone's desktop. With Awesome Docs, we were able to get really granular within Bullhorn as to the facility requirements. And so if submitting a nurse to a specific facility, Awesome Docs knows to pull the cover sheet from that facility, to pull the documents from the nurse's page, their files within Bullhorn, and piece it together in a really pretty PDF that holds all 40 to 50 pages.
Lovely. I'm glad you said the output is pretty. I love
It's
that.
really pretty. It really is.
So that's on your branding, so that's on you.
Well, no, it was really your team helped put that together, because a lot of it we didn't know. We're like, being in sales prior to this, it's like, oh yeah, it's good enough. But your team was like, well, let's make this pretty. So it was great.
Excellent. So you mentioned about 40 to 50 documents, and were you, I guess, prior to having Awesome Docs, was your team, let's say, were they labeling all these documents correctly and storing them in the correct places to help make the process easier, or was that also part of the challenge?
No, yes. Part of the challenge, prior to bringing Awesome Docs on board, I sat down and just did a little case study as to how difficult it would be to go into someone's candidate page and pull the documents that I need. I think I was telling you guys it took me about 27 minutes to compile all of the documents, convert them to PDFs, because a lot of things are saved as like an Excel file or a JPEG. And so you'd have to convert everything, piece it together. And there just wasn't a good process to save it somewhere outside of your desktop or a file on your computer. So it was very messy, and thankfully we brought your product on board.
Brilliant. And I know you've touched on a few elements of it, but I'd like to just to go a little bit more in detail now on what it looks like today with Awesome Docs in place, and also how long does it take you now? You can maybe kind of throw that in there somewhere as well to let us know how much we've helped you. And
Sure.
It's interesting as well, because you mentioned the cover sheet in there, which is essentially the product is helping create the resume for you as well as part of that, kind of similar to what Matt's doing, but it's part of a packet.
Well, in the cover sheets, just to touch on that too, Martin, there's a lot of information that has to be filled out. all of that can populate right from Bullhorn. So if we have a specific field, say their name, their birthday, their social, the city in which they live, their driver's license, all of that can populate from Bullhorn. When building the document, we have the cover sheet, then you go into the candidate page, and the layout of Awesome Docs says, okay, this candidate is submitted to these 3 jobs. So pick which job you want to build the document from. You pick that job, it then creates the document specific to that facility, pulls what is necessary, and then below that, it will now populate another area. Like you want to grab their CV. The CV, it will give you a couple options. And when doing that,
does it look a little like this?
It does. Yes. Yep. It looks just like that. With the CV, it will give you every CV, because a lot of these travel nurses take new contracts, some 3 to 4 different contracts a year. It will pull the most recent resume, or it will give you the option to choose whichever one you would like, but it goes in chronological order. Next, it will then go to the next field, pulling their skills checklist, then pulling all of their certifications, then pulling their references, which are all somewhere in the system. Some of these nurses have, over 400 files, because we've just collected a lot from them over the years. And the automation is incredible, that it just knows where to find it, how to pull it. Then you click create. It takes about, maybe 30 seconds for it to build it. And then it puts it together in a nice submission PDF. It also saves that document into their files as well. So if someone needs to submit to another facility, they could simply grab that if they needed to, or, grab their specific cover sheet to create their own.
Brilliant. And do you feel like with bringing this product on, it's helped to, I guess, emphasize the need and requirement to ensure that the data is entered in Bullhorn correctly in the field, specifically for your resumes and everything else, but then also actually labeling files correctly and putting them in the right place?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So since bringing on Awesome Docs, we have brought in, I think, 6 more team members who this is now the only way that they have known how to do their business. We're seeing many more submissions, many more placements from the 6 new team members than some of our vets. So it's like, oh my gosh, just streamline the process has created a lot of business for us.
That's great.
It's exciting.
There you go, Matt. You didn't realize how easy you had it. Imagine having to find 50 pieces of information to submit someone.
Yeah, that is crazy.
It's interesting as well. It's brilliant. It's interesting as well to know that you've brought in 6 new people and they've been able to just grasp it right away. Because I'd imagine training 6 people in your role process might have been a bit of a headache, perhaps.
Right. Well, and we used all 3, pieces. So it was a new resume learning curve for everyone, a new merging of the documents, and a new contract send out. So it was all necessary, but it's been really beneficial to CrossMed.
So with that, would I be able to say that paperwork had not slowed your new users down?
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. Lauren, if you're there, I managed to tie it all back into the headline of the masterclass. You'll notice how I did that.
Very well done, Raymond.
Thank you.
And just as how long does it take your new team members to create these in comparison to the previous process?
Roughly about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how savvy they are. But yeah, it's way quicker.
That's great. And just for everyone kind of watching and listening in, we've got the kind of process lined out here on the screen just to give a bit of a visual of what we're looking at. So on the left hand side in the first image is showing you what the doc merge packet looks like when it loads up, and the different sections that we're able to pull through from different areas in Bullhorn, as Bridget's touched on. But also as part of that, as well as being able to pull documents from areas, there's also the ability to create brand new documents as part of the process. So that's what we've got here in the middle, where it's showing you a brand new document you've created. but you also have the option to review it and edit it, actually within Word, but while still being connected to Bullhorn. And then you press the big green button, which I'm sure Bridget's pressed plenty of times now, to actually create the document, and saves it straight back to Bullhorn. And I don't know if you're using this part of the documents process, Bridget, but just
a little bit about Austin Fraser and how you use it, Austin Fraser.
So we have dedicated teams for issuing our contracts in the UK and Germany. And they were spending an awful lot of time having to look on Bullhorn, find the information, manually type it into a document, save it, upload it into DocuSign, send it out, wait for it to come back, save it onto Bullhorn again. So we've been able to, we were looking for a product that would really reduce the time we were spending on that. And Awesome Docs has been brilliant, because if we've got it in Bullhorn, we can create fields in our templates and that information just goes straight into it. So issuing each contract now is a matter of seconds. It goes straight, the contract is created, goes straight into DocuSign, and out it goes. And then it comes back and saves straight onto the records for us.
No, it sounds like because you're at the end of the process, and I don't mean that badly to Matt or Bridget, but you're in the position where you're actually committing to paying a contractor or committing to charging a client. That's the one time of the paperwork process that you maybe want to have a little bit more control, but also a time when you want to make even a bit like Matt said at the beginning, making sure that not everyone can change clauses and not everyone can be in control of making their own things. In a previous situation, did things always find their way to Bullhorn, or where did you have things stored before? When I mean contracts.
They usually would, but you always had the risk of human error and an email getting missed and not being saved correctly, and then having to hunt through DocuSign to try and find it. So at the moment, it's just on there straight away. Yeah,
and in the previous world, mainly because Bridget gave us some numbers, and therefore we're all going to try and do some numbers now. In the previous world, how long would it have taken you to be to create a contract, and have you improved that time now?
So the whole process for a new placement, say, would probably take around 15 minutes, but an awful lot of that time is actually the compliance checks that we do prior to sending anything out. I think we're down to about 7 minutes now, maybe less. But it's not just the sort of the time that we spend sending it out, it's the time saved by not having to check we've got everything back.
Okay, both ends of the process.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I think sometimes we, maybe from a Kylo perspective, we get concentrated in the time it takes to create. We sometimes forget about the extra value that can be generated from not having to go and look for things, or actually the quality of data on the database being better.
Yeah. But we've also, because we originally got Awesome Docs with the intention of just using it for contracts, but actually we found that we're just keen to get more and more onto it. So we're using it now to produce key information documents to send out to candidates and things like that.
Okay.
Even termination letters.
Got it.
So it's taking an awful lot of the just admin time out of the processes.
I feel as though your paperwork is no longer slowing you down, Kate.
Indeed, it isn't.
Maybe one of the other. What do you do with all your extra time?
Well, to be honest, it's that massive list of things that you never get a chance to do. But also staff development. It's been absolutely wonderful for freeing up that time so that I can spend more time with my team and help them with their professional development.
No, I think you're not the first person that's heard that. We've certainly seen people who've been able to increase the volume of submittals they make or CVs that they send, or reduce the risk, and then also being able to have better conversations, either with the contractors you're working with or with the clients you're working with, and concentrate on those personal development things. I think what you said there was also a good illustration of what we find is people start with a simple document, maybe not in Bridget's case, but let's imagine that Bridget's case was a simple document, and then find other document use cases that they can follow through. And within Kylo, that's what I'll say excites us. It certainly excites the development team to have a new use case in order to make the Kylo Awesome Docs even more complete. So here's another area where it could be used. Here's another area where it could be used. And I think it being a one-stop shop for the generation of recruitment paperwork is certainly the goal that we're hoping to achieve.
I'd say that it's also encouraged us to look at what else we can automate. So the fact that when a document comes back signed, you can do things like change the status of a placement automatically. We can now use that as a prompt with some of the other things, other tools that we've got, to then send out the emails that we would normally have to go and send out manually.
Yeah, I think automation becomes a state of mind, and once you've discovered that something can be maybe done without you having to go and do it, and you trust it, it then becomes something you want more and more of.
Definitely.
Now, I think across you all, is there anything that you've heard from the other people that you maybe will go and steal, or are there any other use cases you've got that maybe we haven't showcased today? None? Martin, what about you? What have we seen other masters of the class use?
I was actually going to unmute there a second to go and interject on the kind of final piece. I think it was probably one of your favorite parts of the product, Raymond, is that little update we can do when the DocuSign comes back in. I know that, you know, we're talking here with people on the panel that use the product, but we also use it internally, and I actually use it myself day to day but as often as I possibly can for sending out documents to clients from this end. And Raymond, I'm sure, gets a lot of notification every time the contract comes in.
He certainly does.
And we also then have, you know, other clients are using it to trigger maybe an email that goes elsewhere, or even also another client has a notification that goes into Teams, you know, kind of celebration of success, automated, which is, I think, another really great use case. Yeah. But it's great to hear that all of you are kind of talking about, or thinking about at least, the other ways it can be used, because I remember my early conversations with you all, and usually you come with a requirement, and we can fill that requirement, and I always kind of talk and try and explain, you know, this is what you do, but, you know, moving forward, it can be used from the other entities and plug in to help you with other documents. So it's great to hear that that's you know, coming to fruition and being thought about as you're using the product. And it's interesting, Kate mentioned about, you know, being able to utilize the DocuSign functionality as well, because we also have, you know, the ability to create documents, but using DocuSign allows us to use, you know, some of the DocuSign functionality there too for the collecting of information, and maybe even collecting a file, and, you know, pulling that straight back into Bullhorn, as well as sending out a contract for signature.
I think with the DocuSign functionality, it's been useful for us that you can do things like create questionnaires and use DocuSign to sort of give people the options to fill out the various different fields in it, even though you're sending out an awesome doc.
Absolutely. I think we continue to strive for new use cases that we can make use Awesome Doc for. So please, as I know you do, please continue to give us ideas for where we could maybe save another 5 or 10 seconds, or another use case that we could work with. But Martin, do you want to just speak to the sort of customers that we've got and the best use cases?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, it's kind of nicely lined out for me on the screen here, thanks to the Lauren for putting together some fantastic slides. But if you're, you know, looking to improve consistency, be more transparent, and be able to collaborate better in documentation, looking to win more placements in business, I think, you know, Bridget spoke of that specifically, being able to actually get more submittals out and also reduce the compliance and the risk. And, you know, Kate's touched on that, I think, with our processes, being able to lock it down better, and also, you know, Matt, being able to ensure that all of your contracts and compliance are correct on the terms, and also actually then storing CVs in the correct place. And actually, just also, I think, was a massive thing that's always talked about when you're speaking about automation, is just improving the client and candidate experience, making that much better for them, as that's ultimately the people who are going to help make you money and help you be successful. And Awesome Docs is a product we've had that's evolved over time. Initially it was for CVs only, evolved into a contract solution for creating documents. We then brought in the DocuSign integration, and we then brought out a doc merge solution initially to help specifically in the healthcare space, but it's become very apparent that functionality will translate elsewhere to anyone in maybe some light industrial roles who are needing to send out contracts, other sort of safety brochures, or even we had someone recently who's supplying teachers, and as a teacher he needs to send out an agreement, but then also ensure that they have other sort of legal documentation to ensure they can go and work at a school and work around children and such like. So there's many other use cases for the product, and there's a nice big number at the bottom here which shows that over the life cycle of Awesome Docs, we've helped businesses to create over 2.5 million documents worldwide.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. Now we're coming to the end. Apologies to anybody who lost this halfway through. I think there was potentially someone with a finger that was slightly fatter than they expected. But what we've created is a particular landing page where you can find out more about today's masterclass. Please go along if you'd like to find out more. We'd be more than happy to help. I'd really like to say a huge thank you to our panelists, Bridget, Kate, and Matt. It's been great to listen to you speak about your experiences, some of the things we've learned and how you've used it. We really appreciate that, how we work with you, and how we can build on the trust that hopefully we have with you and you have in us in order to take your businesses forward. So really appreciate you being part of the panel today. Martin, thank you very much for being here and keeping me right, keeping me to time. And I would say to the International World Staffing Summit people, thank you very much for allowing us to be part of your session today.
It has been great, and I've just posted the link into the chat for anyone who's here and comes back and listens. Then you can click there and go and find out more.
Excellent. Thank you all very, very much. I don't know how we end it now.
Don't know. Has anyone got any questions?
Got lots of thumbs up. There we go. Now we've got it. How do we end it?
I feel like this is where somebody who had the fat finger before should be pushing a button.
It would appear so. Let's be careful what we say to one another at this point. Someone will end it. Jacob, maybe. Okay. Well, I think we could all log out. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.